It was definitely.
But here are our last two examples. Okay, so some of you are asking, well, can't we just use the washer or the disc method? Yes, we could. So let's talk through first the shell method, then we can talk through the wash disc method, and then we can talk about which one may be better. Okay, so if we're going around the y-axis,
The x, we're going around the x-axis, right?
yep. We're going around the x-axis, sorry. Then we would have horizontal rectangles with thickness dy, right? That would create shells. Okay. So we would have 2 pi, our radius, distance from rectangle to axis, would be y. The height of our shells, right minus left, would be 8 minus y cubed dy. And then our limits of integration would be 0 to 2. Okay. Now, some of you are asking, can't we just use a disc?
Yes.
Okay. A disc, we would have a perpendicular rectangle to twist around to create those discs. And in this case, we would have pi r squared h. Okay, where our radius would be just the cubed root of x because we have no hole to subtract out. And our limits of integration would be 0 to 8. So you have pi integral 0 to 8 of x to the 2/3 dx. Or you have this up here. Okay? Really, either way is going to get you the same answer. The only benefit to the shell method in this case is that you don't have to work with fractional powers. But that would really be the only upside there. You're having to work with 2 terms instead of 1 term. Okay? Why are these good things to talk about? There will be times where I ask you to specifically use the shell method, specifically use the disc washer method, or specifically integrate with respect to x, specifically integrate with respect to y. There will be other times where I give you no direction, and you're going to have to make the decision which method is going to be the easiest to do by hand. Okay? If you're doing it with your calculator, it's really more about which one's the easiest to set up. But if you're having to do it by hand, especially with this one isn't so bad, but when you get into having washers and you have like 2 quantities to square, that could get pretty intense as far as the algebra is concerned. Whereas the shell method, the algebra is distribute. Okay? Yes?
I believe the solution for the integral is 96 pi over 5.
I would agree with that. 96 pi over 5. Okay. Let's go ahead and talk about a case where we would not have a rotation around an axis that is the x or y axis.
Because I started down here.
Mine, I write really quick.
Okay, let's talk about this one. Okay, first of all, x equals y minus 2 squared. That is a parabola opening to the right. Why is it shifted up 2?
That's how it was. Like if you switch them really. No, I didn't actually.
Because
mean
that's how
sarcastically.
it works.
That was just like what my brain said. Because like if you had the x instead, like you have to shift it the other way of the sign, so even though it's y, it still has to follow the same rules.
Okay, when it's inside of the function, right? If we had x minus 2 the quantity squared, we shift to the right. Okay, so now we're like flipping it. Y minus 2 the quantity squared, we're shifting it up. Okay. I know you weren't trying to be smart, Jackson. Okay, so we're going to twist this around. We're going to rotate this around the line y equals -1. This will be our last example, and then I want to give you some time to do some homework in class. And then I have a review for you that gives you some AP problems to practice. Because guess what? Well, we have a quiz on Monday, yes. But on the AP test, there will be, for sure, one of the 6 free response problems that will involve area and volume of rotation. Maybe we can add it in arc length that we learn next week. Yes.
But they don't do shell method specifically, right? Like they're never gonna tell you to do shell method.
Correct. So on the AP test, if you know the dishwasher method, you will be fine. Okay? Like my husband's students are learning the shell method today for the first time.
Oh,
I don't like that.
they didn't learn it in
He did not.
You know, it would be fun if we went on a field trip and met all the Monarch BC kids.
You know what? We totally could at Calculus B.
Are there more of them?
But we should do that before then.
Or we could
Like
do
a calculus party.
A little picnic.
Yeah, like a party.
You know, like a collaboration show in
Five?
macro except in calculus.
They have
Where we
five.
go
We
and
could do a bowling competition
We
between
have
the
some
2
fun.
classes.
And then we do calculus while we're waiting to bowl, so that way we're still doing calculus. And then
I
it's
will
math.
think about this. Am I not?
think she will.
Calculus.
Do you have this wrong?
Yes.
AP.
To make sure.
Okay. Using rectangles that are vertical. Good idea, bad idea.
No.
No, because it's too.
Okay? It wouldn't be like impossible, but it would be a lot of work. Okay? Using rectangles that are horizontal with thickness dy would be much more direct. Okay, we can use one integral. Now, we have this rectangle that is parallel to the axis of rotation, so we have to use the shell method. 2 pi RH thickness. Okay. Let's talk about our, radius. Our radius is always the distance from rectangle to axis of rotation. What is it?
Y plus 1.
Typically, it's when we go around the x-axis, this distance is y. Well, now we've increased it by 1, right? So y plus 1. Okay. Let's get through this problem, and then I'll put a different axis of rotation, and we'll talk about how that would change it. Okay, our limits of integration would be 1 to 4. Those are our y limits. And then the height of each of these shells, okay, is the length of that rectangle. Right minus left. Sorry, I should do these backwards for you. On the right, we have a line. On the left, excuse me, I don't want an x. Y minus 2, the quantity squared. First of all, any issues, any questions, any concerns about this setup? Then let's talk about what if I changed it to y equals 5. Okay. If we change this to y equals 5, the only thing that's going to change is the radius. Do you agree? Okay, so I'm just going to take a moment to copy everything down except the radius. It's not required for the AP test. And so, I don't know.
So we could be better than
Okay, so let's talk about this radius right here. 5 is above, so we need to start with 5. It would be 5 minus y. Yes. Gabe, are you okay with that, or was that a question? Okay. So here's the deal. We have about 13 minutes left. What I would like for you to do is, do I need to write the problems on the board? You have your book or your phone to at least share. Hannah has a book at their table. Pod 7, do you have a book? Okay, Emily has her book on her phone.
I have a book in the office.
Go get it. Well, you know what? No, let's use this one. And you have a book on your phone.
Nathan needs a screenshot.
you guys all use the online. We could just-
Okay.
Darby was-
I want you to try to get 2
Do you use
problems.
the online book? Does it make you like download Adobe Flash Player now to access it?
I actually